Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy New Year. Today we are on one of my personal boats. It is a 1969 20-foot Seacraft that my dad and I, mostly my dad, got to give pretty much all the credit to him, restored this thing. We've had it for a long time. He's been restoring this thing for years. New Year, just hanging out. Wanted to shoot a little video on single outboard operations and maybe just clue you in on a little bit more on the single outboard side of things. I try to get into that as much as I can, but definitely want to focus on that a little bit more this year. And that's single outboard or stern drive. It all applies similarly. But first, I'll give you a little tour of the boat and also check out this little sunken sailboat that we have right next to me that is exposed during low tide out here in the middle of the bay. And this sailboat's been here a while. It's actually been a problem for a lot of guys out here, including myself. I've actually hit this with the tip of my lower unit, the skeg, coming back into the marina one day, and it wasn't even low tide that day. A lot of other captains in the area have had an issue with this boat as well. So here you go, check it out. So once again, it's low tide today. This thing is finally exposed, and it's hard to see unless it's this low. And I didn't know this, but there is a little fender marker on this that somebody has tried to attempt and to mark this thing, but it's gotten wrapped up over the years. This thing's been here a long time. You can kind of see the mast down there. Probably grouper on this thing or something. But I'm gonna roll over here nice and easy. I'm gonna try to keep the boat off of this sailboat, but I want to try to unwrap that fender and get it floating again so that we can have a marker on this thing, because the marina that I come into, it's right in the path of the channel, and I really don't want to hit this thing again. So let me figure out what we got to do to get this fender unraveled. And here's the boat. I'll go through the restoration of what we did on this thing, but as most of you know, Seacrafts are a legendary hull, very popular boat to rebuild, and you can find the hulls for, you know, pretty cheap in some places. But let's get this fender out and see if we can get a better way to mark this thing. Just got to keep the paint job away from this thing. That's the hardest part. I don't want to scratch this boat. It's too pretty, but somehow this happened. Well, got to be careful of barnacles here. Yeah, this thing's wrapped up pretty good. And it's got another one. See, somebody else tried to do that as well. I'm gonna back up here. I'm gonna have to find a different solution for that, unless I can figure out how to unwrap that fender. All right, well, I tried with two hands to get that thing unwrapped. It's kind of tied up really funny. I don't really know why they decided to tie it up like that, but I'm gonna have to come back out here on another day and try to find that thing. But regardless, I'm going to mark this on the Simrad. Just use the mark button right here, and it'll draw a waypoint right there. So that way, when I'm coming back in here, I don't run over that waypoint, run over this boat, and potentially hit something. And I can save that waypoint too. And you can do this on all your stuff, right? Garmin, Simrad, doesn't matter. Go to that waypoint right there. That's the waypoint name. And then I can name it there. But Simrad's good stuff. I like Simrad. I know it's not as popular as Garmin for recreational boating. It definitely is nice for fishing. I'd say it's a better unit for fishing for sure, but maybe navigation, one could argue that Garmin's better. I use both. I use them. All right, so I ran back to the marina, and they had an old junk pontoon boat in there from the storm that had sunk, and it's going to the scrapyard. So I grabbed an old fender and a couple life jackets with some big line, and I'm gonna put both of them on there to mark this thing with about 5 feet of line to account for the tide, because it's a negative tide today. So, you know, average tide's probably a couple feet up from there, maybe 3 feet. So 5 foot of line should do it. And I'm gonna try to tie it up in a place where it's not going to get all tangled and wrapped up again. Ease our way out here. All right, I gotta find somewhere to wrap this thing where this line's not gonna come off. I think on that stern rail back there, probably gonna be the best spot. It's easy to get to. All right, well, I got two floats on it. I got one fender there on the tip of that piece of aluminum, and then I got a bundle of life jackets on the back stern rail of that sailboat. So hopefully it stays there a while, but once the tide comes up, they'll be hovering above it really well. I don't think they're gonna get tangled again. Did the best I could with it. I don't want to scratch the boat up, and I don't want to get all cut up either. So I just put it where it was easiest to put it, but better than nothing. Hopefully somebody gets this thing out of here. Several boats have hit this thing to the marina, several boats. I think the last guy who hit it actually pushed it over on its side. That's why it's heeling over. But we'll get moving. All right, let me give you a tour of this boat real quick. Once again, it's a 1969 20-foot Seacraft, and we got it as a stern drive. It was actually a 4-cylinder, and excuse the boat, it's been a while since I've been out here on this thing. It's a little dirty, but the boat came with a 4-cylinder with an Alpha 1 stern drive, so it did not have the bracket or the outboard. The engine was actually right here under this console, under the engine hatch there, and I'll tell you how we custom made that here in a little bit. Custom Birdsall Marine leaning post. All of this has been redone. This is the original console. I'll walk up here to the bow for you. Jimlux rod holders, Jimlux cleats. Starting at the bow, we did do the Rodan. I believe this is a 72-inch Rodan. We did a pop-up nav light. It's got a bow cleat. This is a new anchor locker hatch from Boat Outfitters, I believe. The trolling motor lithium batteries are under this hatch with a charger under that hatch. I did decide to mount the Engel cooler on top of that hatch, strapped down. It's good for tarpon fishing and fishing on the flats, and obviously you need a good cooler on the boat. A couple forward rod holders, fish box right here. Good sized fish box. You got rod holder storage on the port and starboard side. Got a little fish measuring ruler down low. The entire boat has been repainted. It's got all grip, ice blue hull sides, obviously white top cap, stainless steel rub rail. Forward bench seat, all this upholstery's been redone. This windshield was redone by a guy in Tampa. He custom made all that. Came out really nice. It's just got a simple helm area. U-Flex steering system, obviously the Simrad, all our switches. All this was CNC'd by somebody online. We had it sent off to. They made what we wanted. We do have some analog gauges, fuel, volts, all that good stuff. Suzuki binnacle, Suzuki SMG gauge, start switch, kill switch. We've got 2 batteries with a battery switch down under the console. And once again, this was a deck up rebuild. So the stringers in these boats don't have any wood. So the stringers were in good shape. Even the console mounts that the console interlays with, it's fiberglass, all that was solid. The deck was solid. I really couldn't believe it. The transom was not solid, it was rotten. And that's when we went and bought the Stoner Boatworks flotation bracket. So that's a fiberglass bracket, adds a little bit more lift for the Suzuki 175. It comes out real nice. I mean, the boat rides like a bigger boat. I really can't explain how nice a 20-foot Seacraft rides, even a 23 Seacraft. It's called a variable dead rise hull. It allows air to come in those pockets and makes the ride really soft, which is why everybody loves them. Once again, Birdsall, leaning post, and we designed a live well back here. It's a molar I think this is a 35-gallon live well, and I did all custom plumbing up through the deck because this boat did not have a live well before, so we had to make one ourselves. It's got a 2-inch drain off the back of the live well, and that goes through the deck through a seacock in the hull, on the bottom of the hull. It's got a 500-gallon-per-hour live well pump that's under this hatch on a seacock, and we also have a washdown, a saltwater washdown pump tied off of that as well. Really cool boat. We enjoy it a lot. It's really cheap to run around. It's a boat that gets 5 miles to the gallon, 4 to 5 miles to the gallon at about 4,500 RPM, running about 28 to 30. So it's a cheap day on the water. Ride's good. I've had this thing 54 miles offshore. Red snapper fishing. On a calm day, of course. Got about 140-mile range. 45-gallon tank. But that being said, let's go run around a little bit, see what the day has to offer. It's supposed to be blowing west, but I think it's blowing east right now. We'll go run around and talk about some single engine stuff. Coming up on plane, starting off with a single, just like a twin outboard boat. You know, I've talked about this in other videos. You want your engine trimmed down, so I'm gonna go ahead and make sure my motor's trimmed all the way down. And this boat likes to be trimmed down because it's on a bracket. And then this boat also does not need any trim tab. It's got plenty of power, so it doesn't need any trim tab to get on plane and lower the bow. So I'm not gonna put any tab down, but if you were, add a little tab down, maybe 25%, just to help you get on plane, and then you can adjust your tabs from there, and then you can trim your engine out, you know, hold it 1, 2, maybe 3 seconds, and bring it up about 10% off the transom, and then you'll be running smooth. Careful out here right now. There's a lot of sunk boats from the hurricane still. Doing about 28, about 4 miles to the gallon, 4.2, 4,000 RPM. I'm gonna trim up just a touch. That's that old technique that I've talked about before. Coming into a larger wake. The boat that passed me was definitely a larger boat. I came at it right before the waves. I turned away from the waves. I know it looked bumpy on camera. It was a little bumpy, but it would have been a lot worse if I had hit it straight on or I leaned into it. Lean away, let the V of the boat do the work. All right, let's talk about no wake zones. You know, nobody really covers that. So let me go back around to this sign here. There's different kinds of no wake zones. And I'd say most people don't know the difference. So yes, there is your idle speed no wake zone, right? Where it's idle speed only. And what I call an idle speed in a boat like this, or, you know, more outboard boats, is probably idling from, you know, your 600 or 700 up to about 1,000. All right, you're not making much wake at those speeds in an idle speed no wake zone. But then you have zones like this in the ICW. This is the Intercoastal. That's a slow speed minimum wake. Okay, so you can bump that slow speed minimum wake up to what I like to say 1,000 to 1,500 RPM. Okay, so you got a little bit of a clip, but you're making minimal wake. You're not idling. I've even been pulled over by an FWC officer where he said that was, so he pulled me over one day I was coming under a bridge and it was a slow speed minimum wake zone. So I was doing about 1,200, 1,300, I'll kind of give you an example. So, and it wasn't on this boat, but I was doing about a clip like that. You know, we're doing about 7 miles an hour right now. Just a little clip, not idling. I was a little above idle coming under this bridge. And, you know, I don't know if he was having a bad day or what, but he pulled me over, no big deal, and spun it around, came back to him. He said, got to slow down, and yelled at me. I said I was going too fast, and I said, all right, well, I mean, that's fair on your end, but I disagree with you. This isn't an idle speed zone. I'm in a slow speed minimum wake zone. I consider that minimum wake. And he kind of stumbled on his words for a minute, and he said, well, that's discretionary. It's up to me. I said, okay, well, no big deal. And if you think I was going too fast, you think I was going too fast. Can't really argue with the law, right? And he eventually gave me, he asked for all my information and asked me if I had a captain's license. I said, yes. I'm not making money today. I was on my own. Gave him my captain's license, and after I did that, he let me go with a warning. He said, you know what, never mind, I'm gonna let you slide. So even the law officers in this state, I'm not gonna say all of them, but some of them may not even be 100% on this, okay? There is a difference between a idle speed no wake and a slow speed minimum wake, and other boaters are that way as well. You'll be in a slow speed minimum wake, you'll have just a little bit more of a clip going, and they'll look at you funny like you're doing something wrong. Happens all the time. Bottom line, read the signs, guys. Nobody reads the signs on the water. You have to, all right? There's a lot of signs out here that are gonna say slow speed minimum wake with an exemption of a certain month or time frame, okay? Nobody reads the fine print under the bold letters. They don't go over there, if they're not sure where they're at, they don't go over there to look. And it can be really frustrating sometimes when you're out here boating and somebody else is yelling at you when they're actually the one at fault because they aren't the ones paying attention to where they're at and what zones they're in. So read the signs. Don't just pay attention to the bold letters on the signs. Read the fine print under or on top of that bold lettering. So this is what I'm doing for my slow speed minimum wake. I'm doing about 1,400 to 1,500 RPM. I'm doing about 5 miles an hour because the tide is actually coming at me. The current's coming at me right now. Tide's flooding in hard. And as you can see, it's not an idle speed. And the waves are not the smallest, but this is fine. This is minimal wake. Am I gonna affect that guy over there fishing next to the bridge? No, not at all. The waves are not that big. It's minimal. Once again, give you a little example here. Turn away, okay, much smoother than it would be if I turned into it. All right, I just came to a pretty important intersection that really should be talked about. When I came under the bridge, I was in the Intercoastal. I'm still in the Intercoastal now. This is what's called Pass a Grill. And Pass a Grill heads out to the Gulf right over there. Now, the Intercoastal, the rules on the Intercoastal, if you've been watching my videos or know this by heart, the Intercoastal rules for the channel markers are red to the dirt side, the state of Florida side, and green stay to the seaside, okay? So heading south on the west coast, I'm heading south right now. The reds are on my port side and the greens are on my starboard side. It's that way. That is the rule all the way to Tarpon Springs, okay? And then you cross the Gulf over to Carabel. But it's red dirt, green Gulf, all right? So reds are on my port side heading south. There's my red over there. And if you look in the top of that red, you can see a little golden triangle. That golden triangle is what represents that you're in the Intercoastal waterway, all right? Now, here's the difference. At this intersection, this is where it changes. You have to change this in your mind. You have to change the rule. The Intercoastal heads off that way, all right? It heads over to downtown St. Pete under that bridge. So I follow that rule right on my port side all the way up to downtown into Tampa Bay. But if I continue here, there's a red right off my bow. That red does stay on my port side, okay, heading out of the pass. But why does it stay on my port side? it's not because it's red dirt, green Gulf. We have now left the Intercoastal. We're heading out of a pass. We're going to a larger body of water. So that red is on my port because we're going to a larger body of water. So once I leave Pass Grill, if I was coming back into Pass Grill, reds would now be on my starboard, and it would be following the red right return rule. And then once I get to this intersection again, heading to that bridge, now I'm back in the Intercoastal. My mind's got a switch. I'm now back to red dirt, green Gulf. This happens a lot on the west coast of Florida. A lot, all right? And it happens on the East Coast as well. A lot of intersecting channels on the East Coast too. But we have a ton of shallow water here in the West Coast. So if you mess up these markers just a little bit and you don't get that rule right in your head and you're not paying attention to your chart plotter, well, you're gonna run aground pretty quick. Happens all the time. So here's what it looks like on the chart. Here I am, I'm heading south. This is a north up chart. So north is at the top of the screen, I'm heading south. If I turn left and go down through here, that's the Intercoastal. If I continue straight, that goes out Pass Grill. These intersections are really important. You have to understand why and how the channels change. Got some dolphins working over here. All right, so we're gonna head under the Intercoastal here. Head under this bridge, we're gonna head up into Tampa Bay, and we're gonna go do some docking, walk you through some docking stuff. There's that red triangle at the top. Negative tide today. Yeah, winds are blowing from the east, northeast. I don't know why I thought they were gonna blow from the west today, but yeah, north, northeast, pushing all of the water out of the bay. That's why we got these negative tides this morning. So the water's driving that way toward the Gulf because of the wind. That's kind of how Hurricane Irma drained the bay. And also, I believe Milton this year drained the bay. Was the way that storm was spinning was producing those northeast easterly winds, and it was just driving all that water out. It's not the tide that does that. I mean, the tide certainly affects how much it drains out or how little it drains out, and vice versa in incoming tide or upward. But it's the wind that really pushes that water. And all these docks have still not come down on the pilings. They haven't got around to fix them. All that's from Helene. And then I'm not even sure what this is. It's a commercial fishing boat, or no, this is a construction barge of some sort. Getting all this equipment on and off. I've never seen that around here. I'm not sure where they keep that. Pretty cool boat. Hailing port is New York. All right, let me get some fenders out here, and we'll go into talking about single engine docking. All right, guys, so we are starting with our engine straight. That's your basis, right? That's your basis with a single engine outboard. And when you're running that outboard boat, you always keep your head turned around looking at your engine. That's like a key thing, is look back, look back, look back. Looking back is your best friend. You gotta know where this engine's turned at all times, right? And then, of course, most of you or some of you have probably heard about steer before gear, right? All that means is you are steering the boat to the direction you want to go before you shift. Now, why is that a thing? What does that do? That allows you to move the boat more accurately. It allows you to make the correct move. If I were to shift and then steer, and my steering was not in the correct direction, obviously, that I wanted to go, then it leads to an overcorrection or oversteering or an exaggerated maneuver, okay? And when that happens, right, that initial shock of, oh crap, I just messed up, leads to bad things happening, right? It leads to a goose in the throttle. It leads to panic. It leads to all that stuff that we see all over the internet, right? So steer before gear, start with your engine straight. Now, if you're just getting into single engine, if you just bought your first single engine, whatever it may be, you can practice this. The wind is at my stern, and get the wind or the tide at your stern. Start with your wheel straight, shift in reverse, and just practice steering. Get your head turned around and just practice steering the stern into the wind. It's a stern first mentality. We're moving the stern of this boat. I'm trying to control this boat to keep it going into the wind. If you need a little more, bring it around a little bit, all right? Now that gets into movements, right? So if I want the stern to go off to the starboard there, where do I turn the wheel while I'm in reverse? I turn it to starboard. I'm hard starboard. If I want the stern to go port, I turn the wheel hard port, and it tracks back the other way. Okay, so in reverse, starboard, starboard, in reverse, port, port. That's kind of how I teach it. It seems to click with people a little bit more than some other terms, but however you want to memorize it is fine. In reverse, starboard, starboard, in reverse, port, port. We're moving the stern. So just practice this. Back the boat up into that wind. Flip your head around. Get used to looking backwards, operating your boat. So many people will be backing into a slip or whatever, and they'll be looking forward. We're backing up, but they're looking forward. It doesn't make any sense. It's because your mind is not used to it. You got to train your mind. All right, so I'll stop the boat right quick. All right. Now, I've got some fenders out. These are these, weird kind of foam fenders from Amazon that like cinch up to your cleat. I'm generally not a fan of these. I don't recommend them to my clients, but for this boat, for some reason, they work better. They're a little smaller. I don't have a lot of freeboard. The freeboard is from the rub rail down to the waterline, and they're just easier to store and they work better. I just slide it around that little dip net there for the mid fender. And then that one works fine at the cleat at the stern, but I'd like to put another cleat right here soon, other than the one at the bow. But once again, I don't really recommend these. Just use a standard tailor-made Big B fender, or the Super Guard ones. I don't like the Super Guard ones, but they're easy. Some people like them, but just use standard fenders for the most part. All right, so we're just gonna approach this side tie dock here, and this is as simple as it gets, right? You gotta be able to do this before you can do anything, and that's just approach a side tie standard floating dock, right? So come up here, I'm gonna steer before gear. I'm gonna get my bow going to the dock, the wind's at my stern. We're gonna make that 45-degree angle. I want momentum. I do not want speed, and I don't want to go super slow, but I just want a little momentum. So I've got some good momentum there. I go to neutral. Now I'm turning the wheel away from the dock, pop it in forward. I'm in neutral. Everything's happening right. I'm gonna start straightening my wheel, the whole steer before gear, pop it in reverse. Now I'm turning the wheel to starboard. Back to neutral. I'm gonna pivot one more time, back to forward, and it lays right up. Piece of cake. I might have been a little late on the reverse on that one. Still made it happen, all good. Might have been made it a little late on the reverse. That's why I had to use a little bit of throttle to get the boat stopped. But other than that, that's the technique, okay? You want it to be very quick and concise, all right? Now, to get off the dock. I see so many people trying to get off the dock and just turn the wheel to port here and just put it in forward. And what happens when you do that? The bow starts going that way and you slam your stern right into the dock. It's not the correct approach. You have to get the stern off the dock first. So once again, steer before gear. I want the stern to go port. I want it to go that way. So I turn the wheel to port, which it is, and I shift in reverse. Okay, now look, my trolling motor's about to hit, so I'll just straighten up. Boom, just like that. I straightened up, and it brought the boat straight back and stopped that swing. Okay, a inexperienced, or maybe a rookie boater, they would have threw it into neutral, and that bow would have kept swinging, and it probably would have hit. Okay, keep it in gear, straighten the wheel, pull straight off the dock. Now let's do it again. I'm gonna get my 45-degree angle here. My wheel is now straight, just about there, so I'm in gear. I'm gonna go to neutral. I'm gonna turn away from the dock, and that's gonna start swinging my stern into the dock, just like so. We're all good here, wind's in my favor. I'm gonna turn the wheel to starboard and shift. And it's gonna come to a nice slow pace here. The stern's gonna work over. I'm in neutral. I'm gonna straighten my wheel to finish. A little forward there, and we made contact. You wanna make contact softly. Make sure, if you're gonna make contact with the dock, make sure it touches the fender. Now, which line would I get tied up first? That's probably another question you're wondering. If I had a mid-cleat on this boat right here, I'd tie up the mid-cleat. I'd run a spring from the mid-cleat forward or back. But on this boat, I'd probably secure the bow first. That's what I generally do, so it doesn't drift away. So I would secure the bow, run back here and secure the stern. It's a 20-foot boat. It should take you less than 10 seconds to tie this boat up, realistically. All right, starting off with my wheel straight, leaving the dock. Steer before gear, turn away from the dock, put it in reverse. Okay, as the stern goes away, I straighten the wheel, and then just slowly walks away. Piece of cake. Turn the wheel to starboard to make the stern go starboard. All right, I'm gonna go to neutral. I'm gonna pivot back to forward. Let's go find another dock. My wheel is straight. Pick my target. Aim small, miss small. Turn the wheel away just a little bit. I'm gonna go to neutral, slow myself down. No need to be in a rush right now. Once again, wind's at your stern. It's all in your favor. Closing in. This is the part that wigs people out. You turn away, you put it in gear. Nobody wants to do that step, but look what it does. It straightens you up. All you have to do now is turn the wheel toward the dock, turn the wheel to starboard, put it in reverse, and you make contact. Nice and smooth. It's two movements. It's just the timing of the movements. If you don't have the timing right, then you got to get back to work. Keep training until that timing is right so you look good at the dock. Turn the wheel away from the dock and back up. Looks like I'm gonna hit, but it's not. I'm probably 3 feet away from that dock because the bow curves in. I'm gonna straighten up here. Make the stern come to starboard. Neutral, pivot in neutral, back to forward. Okay, guys, if you can learn how to pivot with your single outboard, right? Don't move the wheel unless you're in neutral in these tight spots, and learn these pivots. You will be a much better single engine boat operator, much better. You won't get panicky. You'll be able to put this thing in any tight spot that you can possibly find, and you'll be able to get out of it with a lot of ease and a lot of confidence. Well, we're about home. I thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. Hope you learned a little bit on some navigation tips. We got a big trip coming up this weekend I'm going to film. We'll have a lot of stuff. We're going to be doing the ICW down the West Coast. So hope you stay tuned. Check that one out. Please subscribe and like it if you learned something. Thanks again. See you on the next one.